Today, we're diving into a story of catastrophic failure inside one of Britain's most sensitive institutions, Ashworth, a high-security psychiatric hospital. We're going to break down the official inquiry that uncovered a system in total, absolute collapse.
And it all kicked off with this bombshell. Now, these weren't just whispers or rumors. These were direct allegations from a man who had actually lived inside Ashworth's walls, Stephen Daggett. He painted this shocking picture of life inside a unit that was supposed to be about treatment and security. And just like that, this one man's claims triggered a massive public inquiry.
You see, Daggett wasn't just any patient. He was an insider, detained right there in the hospital's personality disorder unit. His allegations carried this really disturbing weight because he was describing the very environment that was designed to manage some of the country's most challenging individuals.
To really get the scale of the challenge here, you have to understand the diagnosis. Under the UK's Mental Health Act, this is the legal definition for the condition many patients in the unit had. The keywords to pay attention to here are persistent, abnormally aggressive, and seriously irresponsible. Now, managing this population requires an incredibly delicate balance between therapy and security. As we're about to see, that balance didn't just tip, it completely shattered.
All right, let's zoom in on the epicenter of this whole scandal, a specific wing inside the personality disorder unit called Lawrence Ward. This is the place where the rules didn't just bend, they broke completely.
I mean, the language here is just stark. The nonce's mansion. And nonce is a pretty derogatory slang term for a sex offender. That wasn't a label from outsiders. This was how another patient described the ward's reputation inside the hospital. It paints a chilling picture of a place that was seen as dangerously permissive, a haven for the exact behavior it was supposed to prevent.
So how on earth did it get a reputation like that? Well, the inquiry uncovered a complete and total breakdown of security. A garden was apparently designed specifically to be a blind spot for staff. High-risk patients had powerful computers and cameras. Visits, get this, even with children, went completely unsupervised. There was even a patient-run shop on the ward. It was a culture where security had been totally and utterly abandoned.
And this number right here just illustrates the point perfectly. £570. We're not talking about pocket money. Over just 10 weeks, one patient managed to generate that much money on top of their official hospital income. This just speaks to a total loss of control and shows how patients were running their own little economies, completely unchecked, right under the noses of the staff.
And here's the crucial part. This wasn't some big secret. The chaos on Lawrence Ward didn't just appear out of nowhere. The inquiry found that management had been warned over and over again that the system was failing. But those warnings, they were ignored.
Let's look at the first huge red flag. 2 years before Daggett even made his allegations, a terrifying hostage incident happened on another ward in the very same unit, Owen Ward. A patient who was volatile after being denied a visit actually held staff captive. This should have been an earth-shattering wake-up call for everyone.
An internal report into that hostage-taking produced this damning list. Does any of it sound familiar? Widespread substance abuse, staff who hadn't even read the security manual, inept management. I mean, these are the exact same problems that would later explode on Lawrence Ward. The blueprint for the disaster was already there, written down in black and white.
So why wasn't anything done? Well, this is where the fatal mistake was made. The full, unvarnished report was suppressed. The term they used was botulisation, which basically means it was censored, watered down, and its most critical findings were hidden away. Key oversight bodies never saw the full picture. The lessons from Owen Ward were deliberately buried, which just allowed the same systemic rot to keep on festering.
And if that wasn't enough, then came another stark warning. In 1996, a patient named Stephen Finney was searched, and they found him holding a whole stash of highly sensitive internal hospital documents.
Just look at what he had. Confidential reports, handwritten notes from patient case conferences, ward reports. They even suspected a computer disk had been stolen from a manager's office. This was a security breach on an astonishing level. It showed that patients not only had free rein, but they could also get their hands on the hospital's most sensitive information, maybe from manipulation or even blackmail.
So all of these individual failings, all these ignored warnings, they all built towards the inquiry's ultimate conclusion, which was a much more profound and much more damning verdict.
This single sentence right here is the absolute heart of the entire inquiry. The problem wasn't just a few bad apples or some isolated mistakes. No, the report concluded that the system itself was the main cause of the failure. The entire structure was fundamentally broken.
And this chart really visualizes the core of that broken system. You see, staff were caught in this impossible bind between two goals that completely conflict with each other: therapy and security. Therapy needs openness and trust. Security demands control and suspicion. The hospital leadership never figured out how to solve this basic conflict, and it left the staff confused, demoralized, and totally unable to enforce any consistent standards.
And that toxic conflict, it led to all of these other signs of a completely broken system, a culture of secrecy where critical reports got buried, intense rivalries between different professions, policies that were written but never read, let alone actually followed, and a complete and total breakdown of trust between the frontline staff and the managers. The whole organization was just dysfunctional from the top all the way to the bottom.
So, faced with all this evidence of a total systemic collapse, the inquiry came to a set of radical, really far-reaching conclusions. This wasn't about making a few minor tweaks. This was about acknowledging a terminal diagnosis.
The recommendations started with the basics. Independent security reviews, mandatory searches of all visitors, and a demand that incident reports actually get shared to prevent another cover-up like the Owen Ward one. They even called for changes to mental health law itself, but it's that final step that shows you just how broken they believed Ashworth to be. They recommended closing the hospital completely. And this was their reasoning. The inquiry basically concluded that Ashworth's reputation was so toxic, so utterly destroyed by years of scandal and failure, that it was beyond saving. They believed it would be impossible to ever recruit the high-quality staff you'd need for such a demanding job. The brand was poisoned. The only real solution was to shut it down and start all over again.
The inquiry called the system the villain, but, systems are created and run by people. And that leaves us with this massive, lingering question. When an institution collapses this catastrophically, where does the buck truly stop? With the staff on the ward, the managers who ignored all the warnings, or maybe the architects of the flawed system itself?